Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon edition of Wall Dropping History. I think we're going to have to call it today instead Wall Dropping Knowledge, and that's actually something I've actually been prompted other people because to have me start doing, because we're going to actually kind of start delving into some other topics from time to time, and this is definitely going to be an issue. So I know if you look at the agenda, it talked about doing the culture of immigrants. There's a couple reasons I kind of pushed that back. We're going to do the culture of immigrants later, and there's a couple reasons. The first one is I want to make sure I have more time for people to send in their videos, right? So please send in your videos. And by the way, let me go ahead and say thank you, Lee, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Narali, for showing up today. If anybody else is here in the chat, please say hello. I'd love to give you your shout-outs. But today we're going to kind of talk about and by the way, let's go to the agenda. So the agenda, I do have a new haircut. This is the Mrs. gave me the haircut, so thank you for noticing. This is my Corona haircut. So it's the I don't like fooling with my hair, so I'm getting a buzz cut, so to speak. And thank you for joining us, Quinn. This is the Corona haircut. So. But anyway, go back to the agenda. So this was the agenda. We're dropping that out. It's not happening. Today we're going to talk about another topic because it's something that kind of got me going, right? So I decided to do this one instead. I do still want you to send in your immigrant stories. Can I check your mail after the stream? You mean check my mail, maybe? I don't know. I can't check your mail. I can check my mail. Yeah, Rachel gave it to me. I like it. I thought it was fine, but she was not a fan. So, anyways, so please send in your immigrant stories. If you were an immigrant, if you know somebody was an immigrant, anything like that, please send in your stories. I would love to hear your stories and put them in the show. So if you are an immigrant or know an immigrant, send it in, make a video. I'd love to have that. But we're going to instead talk about something else. It's a little different. And it is something that kind of got me going, right? So every now and then I'll have a topic, and it'll kind of grate on me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this on the show, right? Rachel likes my curls. But so I decided I'm going to do this on the show today, and today we're going to talk about cultural conformity, right? So this is actually kind of a sociology topic, but it's still in the wheelhouse of social studies, so we're going to roll with it today. And as you progress through the lesson today, you're going to kind of understand why I'm doing cultural conformity, what pushed my buttons. Because let me tell you, I hope none of y'all are ever sucked into the black hole of time, which is debating on online media, right? Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever. But particularly during the pandemic, I get sucked into it quite a lot. And I wrestle back and forth, right? I'll see somebody that is promoting something that is dangerous or misinformed, and the teacher in me cannot resist correcting them, right? And so that's happening a lot, and so we're seeing a lot of that today. We have half the country believing that the whole pandemic was a big hoax, that it was made up and stuff like that, and it's really dragging down our response to it. And so I kind of was pushed into doing this lesson today. So we're going to kind of delve into what happened. And I'm not talking about what happened in the pandemic. I'm talking about what happened with America, with the people, right? So let's look at cultural conformity, right? So here in America, most people value personal achievement, right? And as I go through this, if you've ever lived in America and you're growing up in America, which most of y'all have, this is not new to you, right? We really value personal achievement, right? And it's the result of our ancestors who came before us that valued competition. For most Americans, personal achievement is tied to individualism, right? So the downside is often that people get too much of the credit or too much of the blame, depending on what's going on, right? So most Americans value hard work, and they regard laziness as being bad, right? So one of the examples I kind of give of that is the Lebron James versus Michael Jordan debate, right? So, and I'm not going to get on that little soapbox, but whenever you hear people say, well, Michael Jordan was better, it was always, well, he's got 6 rings, right? To which I always kind of point out, yeah, but he was on a team. Like, make no mistake, the Chicago Bulls were better compared to the rest of the NBA than any team LeBron has been on compared to his contemporaries, right? Like, he's faced a lot of teams that had 4 Hall of Famers on it. Michael Jordan faced a lot of teams in the finals that didn't have any Hall of Famers on it. Or only 1 Hall of Famer, something like that. So it's not an apples to oranges. LeBron James really only played with 1 Hall of Famer for his career, and that is Dwayne Wade, and they won 2 out of 4 championships. Whereas Michael Jordan played with a top 5 player in the NBA most of his career and won all 6 of his rings with it, right? So from my vantage point, I factor that in, right? But, a lot of people, most people say Michael Jordan was the GOAT, and they will tie that to, what his team did, not necessarily what he did. So my kind of question to y'all is, what is something that is a great personal accomplishment for y'all, right? Something that, if I say personal accomplishment, immediately pops in your head, oh yeah, I did do that thing, and that was amazing, right? So what are some of your personal accomplishments? I know for me, I finished top of my little cohort at Auburn. And that was a huge personal accomplishment to me because I was not a great high school student. I'll be brutally honest. I was a C student in high school. You may not know that from talking to me now. I do love to learn. I loved to learn then, but did not like homework, did not like school when I was in school. But when I went back to college, I accumulated a ton of accolades, but it was a very different situation, right? I was in a very different stage of my life, very more focused on my academics, and I felt like was a better showcase of what my mental abilities were capable of. Okay, so Nerali says she got a trophy. Well, what'd you get a trophy in, Nerali? I know for Rachel, it was always something that she was really proud of the job she had in Indonesia. Buying your car, having straight A's. Yeah, great personal accomplishments, right? I mean, I'll never forget the first time I bought a car. Graduating college. Rachel got into like the top college in her country. And so that was a huge accomplishment, right? And so we all understand the need for personal accomplishment, right? And to celebrate that. Okay? Now, due to the religious nature of how this nation was founded, most Americans see things in terms of right or wrong, right? Most Americans assume that all problems have a solution and often judge people based on their ability to get things done. Americans place a great deal of importance on material comfort, right? So there's a common, in my opinion, misconception, but a common sentiment in America that the goal of America, the goal of people, is to make a lot of money, to buy a lot of junk, and the proof of your hard work is how much junk you collect, right? And, if you actually spend any time working, you know how garbage that is, right? Like, everybody knows that there's somebody out there right now who works 50, 60 hours a week between McDonald's and Burger King, and they're struggling to pay their bills. But then you'll meet somebody else, like, a Jeff Bezos, who most weeks probably doesn't work 20 hours a week, and the money is just rolling in, right? He can't stop the money from rolling in. Oh, wow. Riley, you had a 4.0 GPA since your freshman year? Wow, that's fantastic. That is really impressive, right? And that's going to serve you well in life. Having that work ethic. And look, I am never going to tell somebody don't have a good work ethic, but I guess what I'm getting at is we have this horrible issue in America of assuming that the amount of junk you own is in direct correlation to how hard you work, right? And the reality of it couldn't be further from the truth. You should definitely work to accomplish your goals, but I'm not going to get on my own little shoebox, but I can make way more money than teaching. There's a lot of jobs I can do with my college degree. I don't even have to go out and get another degree, and I can make way more money. But making money is not everything, right? That should not be your ambition in life. I mean, that's a factor, but it shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. So what are some issues you see that people look at in terms of right or wrong, but you see some gray to the issue? For me, I always think, a lot of people see immigration as right and wrong, and for me, there's gray area to it. If you always hear people say, well, a lot of these illegal immigrants are breaking the law. Yeah, but, a lot of them are coming from really, really rough situations, right? Like you talk about like in Honduras. Man, it's really rough in Honduras. Or Syria. That's another one where it's like there's some like real chaos going on there. And, they're just trying to come here to make a better life. And I'll tell you right now, I don't consider myself an immoral person. But if I grew up in war-torn Bosnia, you better believe I'm getting out of there, right? I'm trying to make a better life for my family, right? So, and there's a lot of issues like that. And I don't want to get too far into any soapbox, but, I think about, like, a lot of people see abortion as black and white. And some people see it as shades of gray. Some people would look at, you go back in time, people saw gay marriage as a black and white issue, or, having transsexual bathrooms. I'll tell you another one, too, that I kind of see as a gray area is transsexuals competing with, what gender do they compete with, right? Should a guy be able to say they're a transgender person and wrestle women? There's a lot of issues like that I think a lot of people want to see as black and white, but the reality of it is it's a lot of gray to it, right? So that is definitely an American mindset, right? That everything's black and white, there can be no gray, right? No, most Americans value equality and belief that equality extends to the government in the form of democracy. Yeah, LGBT community, right? What rights should they or should they not have? Freedom is an important value that revolves around the belief that individual freedom is the most important freedom, right? And now we're getting into some like mucky water of like, what is individual freedom, right? Like, should you have the freedom if you want to just go out and live that YOLO life and not wear a mask and just infect as many people as you want? But in doing so, you're causing me to be stuck at home, right? So where do your freedoms end and where do mine begin, right? This has also led a desire for most Americans to seek self-fulfillment. And this can also lead to something called narcissism or self-centeredness. And that is the belief that you're the best, right? That everything you do is great, you are without flaw, a complete lack of humility. And I'm not going to try and get too political, but, this is the thing I found that was kind of fascinating. And I think kind of speaks to that aspect, right? So I'm going to let y'all listen to it. Ooh, oops. Let's go back real fast. Let y'all listen to it real fast.
Do it like me. Nobody can do it like me. Honestly. Nobody's stronger than me. Nobody has better toys than I do. There's nobody bigger or better at the military than I am. Nobody loves the Bible more than I do. Nobody builds walls better than me. Nobody's better to people with disabilities than me. Nobody's fighting for the veterans like I'm fighting for the veterans. There's nobody that's done so much for equality as I have. There's nobody more pro-Israel than I am. There's nobody more conservative than me. There is nobody that respects women more than I do. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. Nobody's ever had crowds like Trump has had. There's nobody that understands the horror of nuclear better than me. Nobody even understands it but me. It's called devaluation. The sale of the uranium that nobody knows what it means. I know what it means. Nobody knows more about trade than me. Nobody knows the game better than I do. Nobody's in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. Nobody knows politics.
Okay, you could go all day, right? So, why is it important to have a feeling of self-importance, but why is it also a problem to have too much self-importance, right? Like, let me tell you, everybody watching this, you should feel like you are important, right? You are important, right? You absolutely are. There's nobody watching this that is not important, right? But I think you always have to keep in mind, and I do too, I have to remind myself too, of I'm not the only person that's important. It's very important for me to take into account other people's feelings and beliefs. I think one of the problems I have the most is, and we're going to talk about this later on, is, when you know something is correct and you have to listen to somebody say something that is not correct, it is important to not think of them and think, well, okay, they have these beliefs that I feel are miseducated. I'm trying to think of a politically good way to word this. I don't want to belittle the person because I don't respect the misinformation, right? Like, it's really hard when you hear somebody sitting there shoving out this information of like coronavirus is a hoax to not want to sit there and go, you're an idiot and you deserve to die, right? it's hard not to have that mentality, right? That the mentality of like, if there's anybody that deserves to have corona, it's somebody that says it's a hoax. Because I don't know the environmental factors, I don't know the conditions that led them to getting to the point where they have that belief, right? Like, how did that come into fruition? Rachel says she's not that. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm constantly having to argue with Rachel that she is good at a lot of things. And that's actually me going to go into the next aspect of it, and that is Eastern values. Now, Eastern values have it flipped on their head from Western values, right? And not to say it's bad, just complete opposite, right? So the values of the Eastern value is to focus on the collective, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It puts more value on teamwork. Success or failure is shared, right? People work hard for the sake of the group, whether it's their family, their country, their church, whatever, right? Not for the sakes of themselves. We see this a lot in Eastern countries, and I'm going to talk about this a little later in the presentation, but, when they said in South Korea, hey, y'all need to start wearing masks, everybody just chipped in and did their part. They just wore masks, and they social distanced. And they didn't have people out in the streets saying, open up the community, this is a hoax, to hell with the government, right? Yeah, that is Indonesian. And I don't know if you remember, you did this. When I first made this presentation, you gave me that picture, by the way, Rachel. Or helped me find it. So yeah, that is conformity in Eastern culture, right? Uniforms are more accepted. Here we're like, I don't want to wear a uniform, right? So what do you see are the problems or benefits of having a mentality of the collective comes first? I think the most obvious case is in the case of like now with coronavirus, right? Having people say, look, I know this sucks. I don't want to quarantine. I don't want to wear a mask. But I'm going to do it because it's helping out my country. I think there's the opposite end of the spectrum, though, where you look at it and you go, wait a minute, everybody else is saying it's okay to own slaves, so maybe owning slaves is okay. Or maybe it's okay to kill Jews, right? Everybody else says it's okay to kill Jews, so my country's doing it. I just got to be proud of my country, so it's okay to kill those Jews. Y'all are supposed to wear uniforms at Broadmoor. Anyways. But yeah, most of the country wears uniforms now. But, and I think about it now, like, we see the kids in cages thing, right? There's a lot of people who are just like, they'll justify it and they'll make up all these excuses of why it's okay to have kids in cages. So it has some good and it has some bad to it, right? Now, the end result is not, end results do not matter as much as long as you learn from the experience, right? Humanity is a virtue and there's a lesson drive for material wealth. Equality is less important or not important at all, right? We see China, it may not necessarily have any emphasis on equality. And there's also a shame in self-expression and a virtue to conformity. And I'm not going to show it again because I've showed it before and it got my video blocked. But, you see that video of Mulan, right? In Mulan, like that little song of like, she'll bring honor to us all type thing. That whole song was about how Mulan just needs to conform. Right, that what her responsibility is to be a good housewife. And we've seen this in American history, right? There used to be that old mentality of like a woman's place is in the kitchen and she's to be seen and not heard, so on and so forth. That type of mentality. So that is kind of the difference of Western and Eastern values, right? And these are some ads I thought that really kind of showed the difference, right? So I want us to look at some of these ads. This was probably one of my favorite Super Bowl ads, but I thought I'd share it with you.
Final horse for this year's hits team is Thunder. Thunder. Maybe next year, Hank.
Right? See how it celebrates that feeling of accomplishment, personal achievement, right?
You don't look like you're from around here.
Warum bist du aus Deutschland?
I want to prove me out.
Welcome to America. We don't want it here. Go back home. Abandon ship.
Welcome to St. Louis, son.
Beer for my friend, please.
Thank you. But next time, this is the beer we drink.
Never had that nicer. Dopest push.
Okay, another personal accomplishment story, right? Now I want you to look at this is a commercial about McDonald's, but an Asian commercial about McDonald's. Oops. And I want you to notice the difference in how they're advertising. Notice it's all about community. See? Celebrate it with your family. See, look at all these old people working together. See, teams, more conformity. Okay, so, I sit there and think about it. Of course, the most obvious one is like, the Eastern commercial is focused on you should eat McDonald's to conform, right? That's what everybody does. Everybody's eating McDonald's, right? Whereas an American commercial is more focused on you want to be like Mike. Eat these French fries because it's going to make you jump like Michael Jordan. Buy these shoes because it's going to make you jump like Michael Jordan. We focus more on personal achievement rather over group achievement, right? So what do you think are some different mentalities that have impacted us during the pandemic? Or, I'm sorry, how do you think these different mentalities have impacted us during the pandemic? This, the individualism versus the group emphasis of East Asia. We sit there and we look at it, it's like, countries like South Korea. They were really hit hard in the beginning because they were so close to the epicenter there in China. But I would say that they probably handled the pandemic much better. Whereas now I think you see a lot of people that are having this mentality of like, I gotta do me. There was actually let me see if I can find it. A really see if I can find it. There was somebody it was a post going around on Facebook that's basically arguing against people pressuring other people into being safe and wearing masks. It's kind of the mentality, if I do me, you do you. And kind of my problem is, but when you do you, you're putting me in danger. So that kind of creates that like conflict, so to speak. But I'm curious, what do y'all think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Now, there's something we've already kind of talked about in an earlier lesson called norms, right? But there's something known as the internalization of norms, right? And that's when people come to believe that a particular norm is good and useful and appropriate, and they will generally not only follow it, but they expect others to follow it, right? And an internalization of a norm is when it becomes part of an individual's personality. A good example of this is, and this is one where I'm going to kind of project this and give you this example. always read to your kids. All right, when they're real little, read to your kids. It makes a huge difference. Right? The fact that your kids get to go to school in kindergarten and they are light years ahead in vocabulary, it makes a gigantic difference that will be something that affects them for the rest of their high school career. The rest of their school career. Because if you read to your kids, they are starting way out in front over the rest of their peers. So read to your kids. And that is a good example of pushing a norm to be internalized, right? We all kind of agree it's a good idea to read to your kids, right? So, what is a norm that you feel passionate about that other people should follow, right? Now, obvious ones should be things like wearing masks right now, right? That should be a norm that everybody should feel passionate about. But what are some other norms that you feel passionate about? Like, I know for me, one of the ones for the longest time, hopefully I'll get to go back to a movie theater, but was people not being on their phones during a movie. Boy, that bothers me to so much. Way more than it should. I know another one is somebody cutting me off in traffic. That really, really gets my goat. I'm not a huge fan of somebody when I'm teaching, talking while I'm talking. I'm trying to think of any of the other ones. But what are some ones that y'all are passionate about? What are some things that other people do that should be a norm and it just gets to you? People wearing their shoes inside. Yeah, I know that bothers Rachel. Yeah, that's definitely one. What are some norms that really get to you when people do not follow? Now, most follow norms without even realizing that they're doing so, right? Sometimes people do not follow the norms and must be motivated to do so. Now, you can name a gazillion for me. Yeah, probably. A sanction is a punishment or reward designed to enforce norms, right? So some of y'all may have heard about like sanctions in college, right? If you're caught paying players, you get sanctioned, meaning you don't get recruits or you don't get to be on TV and stuff like that, right? But it's all over the place, right? Like you can pay baseball players, but you can't pay football players or basketball players. So it's really all over the place, right? So, we can definitely see it run amok, right? Like we see with the NCAA. And that's the governing body of college athletics. So, now, a positive sanction is an action that rewards a behavior, and this is the most common form of sanctions, right? They're the ones that we use to help develop babies and children and so on and so forth, right? Narali was sitting there saying her greatest accomplishment was having a 4.0, right? Well, who assigned that, right? It's just an arbitrary letter that we assign to accomplishment, right? But it is a positive sanction. Like, why do we keep grades at all? So that when you make good on a test, you feel rewarded, right? When I made that going away video, I made all those awards, and one of the reasons why is because I wanted y'all to feel like y'all had accomplished something. Because you did, right? And that is a positive sanction, right? Whether it's giving a kid a cookie for eating all his dinner, or me getting a paycheck at the end of the week because I worked hard all week. That's a positive sanction. Oh, no problem, Kier. Thank you for joining us. We're having a little bit of a controversial episode today, or it's going to morph into one. So that's a positive sanction, right? Like, as much as I love teaching, if they don't pay Mr. Waldrop probably will find another profession, right? I've got to figure out some way to feed these kids, right? But then I'll tell you, to give you an example, teaching's over, right? Nobody's making me do this remote learning right now. I'm just doing it because some of y'all expressed interest in learning, and I enjoy teaching, right? And it gets a way for me to scratch that itch, of teaching. So not everything has to be monetary. There's all kinds of positive rewards, right? So what's a positive sanction that motivates you, right? Like when you wake up in the morning, you think, okay, I do fill-in-the-blank action because I want fill-in-the-blank reward. And it can be any of a ton of a million things, right? Like, maybe something as simple as me doing the laundry and having it put up for my wife, or cooking dinner so that my wife is happy when she gets home that I've already cooked dinner, or something like that. All right, we all do things because we want that positive motivation, right? What are some things that really affect you these are the things that drive you and push you to do things, right? Positive things. Not punishment, but positive things. So I'm curious what you think. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Now, a negative sanction is a punishment. Now, this is or could be a threat of punishment, right? As a kid, it is often administered by family, but later on in life, life will do this for you on its own, right? For example, if you don't show up to work, you're going to get fired. If you don't pay your bills, you're going to lose your car or your house or whatever, right? If you get caught cheating on your spouse, you might get a divorce, right? Those are negative sanctions, right? You do an action and you get punished for it in whatever way, right? You drive drunk, you might kill yourself or somebody else and go to prison, right? And that's the most common one, right, is jail, right? If I break into somebody else's house, I'll go to jail for it, right? So, what is a negative sanction that you really hated, right? Like, you think back to when you were a little kid and you were like, man, oh, wow, having a vacation at Crete, you got good grades on your report card. Now, is that something, let me ask you, Quinn, is that something that did happen to you, or is that something that was supposed to happen to you for making good grades? I'm kind of curious. Because, boy, that sounds fun. I want to go to Korea. Well, what's a negative sanction that really affected you when you were a kid? I'm trying to think of some punishments that really messed me up. I know that if somebody took my video games away, my parents took away electronics and television and stuff like that, that really got me. You know, I know for Joe and Elizabeth, it's losing their phone. You know, man, I do that and it's like I've taken away oxygen. You know, but what are some punishments that really messed you up when you were a kid, or maybe punishments that affect you now that really, really get to you? I'm curious what you think. What do you see as working and not working? Now, sanctions can be formal or informal, right? A reward or a punishment by an organization. Oh, you were supposed to do it, but the pandemic ruined it. Oh, man, I am so sorry, Quinn. Let me tell you, we're right there in that boat, too. We were really planning a trip to Indonesia. And, you know, it is brutal, you know, to have to give up on that, right? I don't know. Hopefully we get through this pandemic and you still get to go on that trip, because that breaks my heart for you, because I can't imagine how much fun that would be to get to. I'm assuming you were going to go to Seoul or that area, so... But anyway, so a formal sanction is a formal reward or punishment, right? So like you commit a crime, you go to jail, right? An informal sanction is basically the form of approval or anger from peers. A good example of this is if you're, let's say you're sagging and somebody sees you saying something nasty to you. If you see homeless people, they're treated as like pariahs of society. So that is, you know, when I sit there and I kind of ask the question of what has a bigger impact on you, formal or informal sanctions. And let's face it, we all are affected by both, right? Like, formal sanctions affect me, right? They do, right? Like, I don't think I need laws to convince me not to steal, but there are certain times, right? Like the fact that it is the law that I don't pirate movies. So I don't pirate movies because that's the law, right? You know, things like that, right? But I think about the informal ones being like, you know, it really matters to me. Let me say this. I wouldn't cheat on my wife even if I could get away with it, but knowing it would hurt her is definitely something that would be an informal sanction, right? Like, and it doesn't even have to be cheating. It could be something as simple as I want to do actions that please her. It's not a crime for me to leave my shoes on, but it makes her happy that I take my shoes off, right? So that would be an informal sanction. A formal sanction would be, you know, if I got arrested for jaywalking, right? That's a formal sanction. So what do you think has a bigger impact on you is, you know, what influences who you are? For me, it's got to be informal. Because most of the things that are laws, I'm not going to do that anyway, right? Like, it's illegal to murder somebody. I don't want to murder somebody. It's illegal to steal. Well, okay, I don't want to steal. I don't think laws really affect me all that much. I mean, some do, but most of the things that are laws are things I don't want to do anyway. But I know there's a lot of informal sanctions, right? Like if somebody, you know, I really do a lot of things because I want my boss to approve of me, or family to approve of me or whatever, right? So I'm kind of curious, what affects you more, formal or informal sanctions? And I'm really curious what y'all think. So leave your comments below. Now, social control is an enforcing of norms through either internal or external means, right? This is a principle of social control that all society is self-control, which is learned through the internalization of norms. Now, this could be law enforcement, it could be religion, it could just be public opinion, right? Like here in America, most of us have all forms of social controls, right? For example, I wake up and go to church on Sunday because it's a form of social control. People right now are fighting for our country because they believe in what our country stands for, right? When you go and, who wouldn't want to be able to just skip in line at the grocery store, or we're waiting on a line, right? But we don't skip in line because the social peer pressure and let me tell you this, I had a bad experience of this at Lowe's. There's about 20 people in line, and because we were practicing social distancing, these two people skipped in front of me. And boy, everybody behind them was giving them the business. And they just ignored it and acted like they didn't understand it. Yeah, it was kind of a thing. So my thing are, what are some examples of where social control has been good, and what are examples of when it has been bad? Obviously the most obvious one, the low-hanging fruit of social control is slavery, right? That's pretty bad. I can think of some times where it's good, like skipping in line, right? Or, my opinion, but not hopping on your phone in a movie theater. But what are some examples for y'all where it's like, and Quinn says informal, Rachel says informal. Yeah, I think most people, informal is more of their driving force. I think most people have no real passion or desire to break the law. But anyway, so what are some examples of where social control has been good and bad that you can think of? Curious to know what you think. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Now, ideologies. An ideology is a belief or a system of beliefs to justify social, moral, or religious, political, different economic groups held by a society or group. It is often spread through social movements, and it's possible to have more than one ideology at the same time, right? So you may be in favor of gun rights but against gay rights, or you may be very religious and also in favor of civil rights, right? So a lot of people have all kinds of different ideologies. You are a collection of ideologies. And let me tell you this is putting me on my own little soapbox, but when you go to date, this matters way more than looks. And I know we as humans tend to base who we're going to date on by our looks, but let me tell you this right here, all this stuff, that matters way more than looks do, because we're all going to get old and ugly. But this stuff, that's going to constantly be a thorn in your side if you don't share that, right? And I'm not saying it can't be overcome, but if you're somebody who is passionate about gay rights and you're with somebody who is very bigoted against gays, that's going to be a problem. There's a reason why most religions tell you not to date outside of your religion, and I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying you need a plan, right? If you date somebody that's a different religion than you got to have a plan, because it's going to be an issue, right? It's going to, unless you just don't care about your religion, right? If you're kind of, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church and I don't read the Bible and I don't care about any of that stuff, then it's not so much a problem, right? But if you're somebody who's passionately Christian and they are passionately atheist, say, right? You need a plan to how to deal with that, because it's going to be an issue, particularly if you end up having kids. You just need to talk about it, have a plan, Now, what are some ideologies that make up you, right? And it can be all kinds of things, right? Like maybe it's conservative versus Democrat. Maybe it is religion. Maybe it is whether you like Xbox or PlayStation. Maybe it is your stance on gay rights, or whether LeBron James or Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Whether you like McDonald's or Burger King, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different ideologies. What are some ideologies that you have? Things that you believe are important, that you wish all society... Obviously, a lot of people right now have the ideology of we need to take this coronavirus seriously, and other people have it as it's a big hoax and it's being blown out of proportion. So what do you think? What do you think below? Leave your comments below. I want to know what are some ideologies that make up you. So I am curious what y'all think. One of the ones that I remember was real big when I was a kid, which is corporal punishment, right? And that was the argument of should we allow spanking in school or not? And of course now that's still something that's an issue today, and you constantly see Facebook posts about it. Respecting the elderly. Yeah, and let me tell you, that probably goes back to your Eastern upbringing, Quinn. That's a big thing about in the East, respecting elders, right? And I'll tell you, I'm kind of with you in that. I think we do need to respect our elders. That's a huge issue. Another one I can think of is, so the question I asked was, should we have corporal punishment? This is an example of an ideology that people are all over the place, right? Whether we should or should not have corporal punishment, right? Another one is capital punishment, right? Should people be put to death for their crime, right? Is there crimes that are so bad that people should be put to death for it? I've gone back and forth this many times in my life. It's really hard. I know that harming children, it's tough for me because I have kids, so it's really tough for me. It definitely changes my perspective, but I'm curious what y'all think about that. Should we have capital punishment? So those are a couple examples of where most people have an ideology, right? Technology, right? So social change can often come in the form of technology. Technology can arise through the discovery of invention or innovation, right? We've all felt the impact of social media, right? However, it is constantly changing our social norms, right? So a good example is it's had a huge impact on the fact that a lot of people become what I call keyboard warriors, right? They completely change their personality. Even I am guilty of it sometimes, of having a much more demonstrative, argumentative tone, angrier, venomous, things like that, because it's online, right? The anonymity of if I'm arguing with some guy in Pittsburgh, odds are I'll never meet this person. So I will say things to them that I would never say in real life. And I constantly have to kind of pull back and go, wait a minute, that's not you, Jacob. That's Mr. Waldron, sorry. That's not me, right? I'm not that guy. Don't be that guy. Pull back. I know that this person sounds like a moron, but refrain from name calling and so on and so forth. Because I wouldn't do that in real life, right? If I'm debating somebody in real life, I'm not calling them an idiot or something like that. What's the Clovidiots or whatever. So have you ever done something in anger online that you would have never said in person? And I'll tell you, I think we all do this to some degree. Like we all have some little element of that where it can be really hard to bite our tongue, especially if we're on social media, to not say something that you wouldn't say in person. I know I've had that issue myself. Another social norm that's changing how people express their religious and political views is trolling. Not only has it given rise to more divisive, but it has also created people that promote controversial ideologies or for attention, right? So you may see a lot of people do this all the time. Me and Rachel were actually talking about this the other day, is that mentality of yucking on somebody's yum, right? Like, you see this all the time, like somebody will get on and it's like, raise your hand if you haven't made a Facebook avatar, as though, the people that are making it are idiots, right? I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, and let me know what y'all think in the comment section of some other examples of where people are saying things just to incite anger. And sometimes it works, right? Like sometimes I'll scroll through a wall. It happened to me the other day where somebody was like, I'm taking hydroxychloroquine. I'm taking it because the president said it, and it's Fauci and his cronies are saying it's bad, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh goodness, please no, and I get dragged into a debate, and it's like, no, they're just trolling. A, they're not taking it, and B, they don't even have access to it. They're just trying to stir the pot, right? And you see this a lot on like stupid stuff too. Like I'll see it in If the other day I was watching something on Dragon Ball Z, and they were like, "Oh, Vegeta's terrible," something like that, right? And they're just saying something just to poke the bear and get everybody angry at them, just to get attention, right? So that is internet trolling, right? And I'm sure y'all have all at least seen it or are aware of it. And one of the problems that happens is, particularly susceptible for teenagers, is it can lead to teen depression and suicide. One of the things I hope that y'all experienced in my class, and I hope you experienced on this show, is, man, I'm always trying to be uplifting. If I'm not, please let me know, because I don't want to ever diminish anybody's opinion or their point of view or anything like that, right? But we see that, right? We see it all the time. Y'all see it at school, right? Where, people just gang up online or in person and just really make somebody feel worthless, right? And the kind of question I've ever asked is, have y'all ever experienced someone becoming depressed or attempt suicide or, God forbid, commit suicide? You really start to understand just how destructive it can be to have people online cyberbully each other and stuff like that. It's really, really an issue. I know the First Lady Melania Trump was talking about it, and it's kind of odd because I can't really think of anybody that's a better example of a cyberbully than her husband is. But it's one of those, like, man, I hope she really does succeed in that, right? Like, I'm not hoping she fails in that. I would love for Melania to have this great legacy of ending cyberbullying. I don't know what, if anything, she's even done to combat it, but it doesn't even seem like she can stop it in her own house, let alone in the country. But I'd love to see that, right? I'd love to see a real push to stop cyberbullying and change the way we talk to each other. Oh man, I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Kiera, because it's heartbreaking, right? It really, really is, to deal with somebody going through that type of stuff. And I think we've all experienced it a little bit, right? Like, who hasn't had somebody comment on Instagram or something like that, and they said something ugly and it hurt your feelings? And you may not express it, but it did. It hurt your feelings. And I try never to be that guy, right? That's saying something. Even when I say something argumentative, I'm thinking in my head, or I need to. I try to. I want to make sure I attack the argument, not the person, right? Because that's important, right? The next thing I was going to talk about is online dating, right? That is a new social norm, right? More than half of the country ends up marrying somebody they met online. Right here, right? Me right here. I met Rachel, actually on this one right here, OK Cupid. And I do not work for them, and I'm not promoting online dating at y'all's age, right? However, I liked it, right? I mean, I liked that one just because it asked a lot of questions, and it does. I was talking about this with Mr. Manso today. It does kind of remove, if you remember, you go back to the ideology one. It does help deal with this stuff right here, because when you get to online dating, if it's one that has a lot of questions, right? I don't suggest Tinder per se, because that's just, do they look good or not? But some of these will remove people that you just have absolutely conflicting ideology. And they're all over the place of different, varying levels of success or failures, right? They even have like ones for just people that are farmers. There's some that are racially oriented. I didn't even know about this until Mr. Masley brought it up to me. Black people meet. I didn't even know about that one. But there's all kinds of different ones. I had success with it, right? That's how I met Rachel, and she ended up being fantastic. But that's kind of a new social norm, right? If I'd gone back in time 10 years ago, most of the people me saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you met somebody online and got married," they're like, "Ugh." And I tell you, talk to old people, they still kind of have that reaction of, "Ugh." But society's changing, right? Like, the new society is, when you say you met somebody online, it's like, okay. Most people have, right? Most of the people I know that are making relationships and stuff like that are meeting them online. But let me ask you this and open up to y'all. And I know y'all are younger, right? So, your generation, your worst day is from a Christian dating site. That's funny. But what are your feelings about online dating? Like, do you think we're there? Like, do you approve of it, or do you still prefer the more old-fashioned method? What do you think, right? I mean, is it something like you have mixed feelings? Like, you kind of like it and you kind of don't? It definitely has that danger aspect to it, right? Like, You meet somebody, and before you've even really gotten to know them, you're giving them your name and your address and blah blah blah. So how do you feel about it, right? I'm really curious what y'all think about it. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you think about online dating? Now, here's the additional problem with online dating, right? Even though lying is one of the most hated aspects of online dating, 57% of online daters lie to each other, right? Now, this can range from a faking of attributes such as names, marital status, location, and appearance, all kinds of stuff, right? If I don't know if any of y'all have ever done online dating. Hopefully you all marry somebody fantastic and live happily ever after, right? But if you have to do dating, right, and you choose to go the online route, you're going to end up getting, that old adage of being catfished, right? Like where you're kind of sold a bill of goods, and then you meet the person and they're not who they said they were, right? And I can tell you right now, I've experienced that myself. But let's remove the dating aspect, right? Have you ever met somebody online and they were not who they made themselves out to be? It doesn't even have to be dating. Like, have you ever just met somebody online and they just weren't who they made themselves out to be? I'm curious what you think. Leave your comments below. Maybe y'all have some interesting stories about it. Now, a change in a society of a population may bring about changes in their culture. If a new group of people with their own culture move to that area, it can also change that society, right? And I mean, food is probably the best example of that, right? How many different types of food can you have here just in Baton Rouge, right? Whether you're talking about Indian, Thai, Mexican, there's even in Houston you can go to a place that serves Indonesian food, Greek food, I've had Lebanese food, all kinds of different stuff, right? Just about any type of food you can want, you can at least experience here in America, right? Have you ever experienced something from another culture somewhere else that you wish we had here, right? I know for Rachel, for the longest time, it was bubble tea. Fortunately, she's getting her wish, and now we got some good bubble tea options. But what are some things that, and it doesn't have to be from another country, right? Maybe you went to say up north, and they were serving pierogies, and you're like, man, I wish we had pierogies down here. Or maybe it's like something as simple as like, man, I wish we could have snow skiing down here. I've never been snow skiing. I wish we could have it. But what is a cultural thing? Hockey, maybe. What is a cultural thing you experienced somewhere else? I know some of y'all have traveled overseas or were from another country in the chat. I'm really curious what y'all think. What are some other cultural things? Getting bubble tea now. Yeah. But Rachel, let me ask you too. What's another one, right? What's another Indonesian thing that you wish you had access to here in America? Not food, but something else. I'm interested. What do y'all think, right? What is something that you've experienced that you wish we had full access to here? Now, diffusion is when people often borrow ideas and beliefs and material objects from other cultures, and then it spreads out, right? And that's called diffusion. I remember after Black Panther, you start seeing dashikis everywhere, right? Everybody's wearing a dashiki. Sometimes you still see them, right? But that infusion of cultural Africa into mainstream America, right? So what is public transportation? Yeah, I wish we had that. But can you think of an example of cultural diffusion? Something that's like it came and it kind of spread into the area. Bubble tea is probably a good example, right? Cheap delivery service. One of the ones I can think of is churros. I never had churros when I was growing up, and now it's something that's here now. You can get churros. Costco has churros. So that's one example I can think of. It's cultural diffusion. It could be technology. When I was a kid, nobody had a cell phone. Now everybody's got one. So that would be an example of cultural diffusion. Now, when a culture adapts another culture and it becomes a part of their own, it's called reformulation, right? Reformulation happens all the time, right? Like, we don't think of Taco Bell as being some foreign entity, right? Like, Taco Bell is now just part of America, right? Like, every city in America has Taco Bell, right? If I go to another state, private karaoke, yeah, that's another one. If I go to another state, I'm not worried about, man, am I going to be able to get Mexican food? Right? If I move to Wisconsin, will they have Mexican food in Wisconsin? Of course they're going to have Mexican food, right? So that is an example of when another culture becomes part of your culture. It is reformulation. And it can go the other way too, right? So like now McDonald's is everywhere. And it's not an American thing. Like that's just a thing now, right? Whether you're talking about going to India or Bangladesh or Botswana or Russia, Indonesia, Japan, doesn't matter, right? They got McDonald's everywhere, right? So can you think of another example of cultural reformulation? Let me know. If you can think of one, put it in the comment section below. Now, not all cultural traits change at the same time. Some happen very rapidly. Some take very slow, right? So one of the examples I think of is the Me Too movement, right? That just kind of sprung up overnight. All of a sudden, boom, everybody's doing it, right? Cell phones, right? That just kind of popped up overnight, and now everybody's doing it, right? Western clothing, that's a good example, is reformulation. Now, another one that was real slow was civil rights, right? Like that was, 100 years of fighting for it, and I still think we got a lot of work to do. Another one, too, is the slow transition from using textbooks to using digital books. So that's another one. Buffet restaurants, yeah, that's just the norm now, right? They're everywhere. Can you? That was skip that slide. Now, material culture often changes faster than non-material culture. Technology can often result in cultural lag. This is often due to people having a vested interest in things remaining the same. Probably my least favorite example of this is the technology of energy. Neil deGrasse Tyson's got a lot of great quotes about this, but it's like we're still using the same energy that, if you yank somebody out of the past, right? You pulled them out of like the 1800s, and you put them here in America, and they look around and they go, wow, you got this phone, it's got all the world's knowledge at the push of a button. That's amazing, right? I've got TV that can beam satellites in from all over the planet. We can put a man on the moon and blah, blah, blah. And, he's talking about all the things in which he just can't understand. And he's like, oh, man, you must have all kinds of new forms of energy, like where you're getting powered by the sun and the wind. No, we're still digging coal out of the ground, burning coal, fossil fuels. Wait, what? We had that in the 1800s. How can you still be stuck on that? Like you hadn't made any advancements in 100 years? Nope, not really. Not in America. No, we're still chugging along, dumping fossil fuel. Wait a minute. Now you know that it's killing you. It's polluting the environment. It's funding terrorists. Yeah. We know that. And you're still stuck on it? Yeah. We're still stuck on it. Why? Couldn't you make a lot of money with solar and wind? Yeah. We could put America's economy on the map. So why are you still doing it? Because big oil has a lot of lobbyists, and they're keeping us stuck in the Stone Age. That's it. That's the only answer I got. So sorry to get on that soapbox, but that's kind of my example of it. And let me tell you this. I almost hesitated putting this slide in here because I was afraid another teacher would see this. And let me tell you, my English teachers, I hope you're not watching this episode, right? I've butted heads with my own mom over this recently. I've butted heads with all kinds of teachers. But let me tell you, I hate to be that guy. Y'all, books are outdated. There's no excuse having books anymore. There's no reason for it. You're just chopping trees down. There's no purpose to it. We should have nothing but digital books. And the fact of the matter is, like they were talking about it today, or recently, there was a thing over there of like, we got to figure out what new textbooks we're going to use at school, right? Like, how are we using? I remember when I got AP US History, they were like, "Oh, what textbook are you having?" And let me tell you, if you took AP US History with me, I didn't use that crap. There's no textbook I can have that can keep up with the world depository of knowledge, not suppository, sorry, world depository of knowledge that exists online, right? There's just too much information, right? So why would I use this old, outdated, archaic book that is not updated when I can use the entire world's knowledge, right? And I'll tell you another one too, and I would get a lot of blowback on this from teachers, and I'm curious what y'all think, but I'll be honest, there's no reason to teach kids cursive anymore. There's just not. We're entering the digital age. My kids can't read cursive, and they just keep on living. I know a lot of y'all probably reading this may or may not be able to read cursive. Look, everything's typed now. Everything is typed now. I understand the whole thing of, like, you used to hear people like, well, you still got to sign contracts and stuff like that. Yeah, we're even phasing that out. Like, we're slowly phasing out using your own signature. Right? Like, when I go to Costco, I remember I used to have to sign the little thing. Nope. Boop, push the button. We move on. Right? Paying for your house. Right? I did a lot of, when we bought this house, is digital signatures. Right? Man, I hate to say it, but and I made this little infographic myself, but when I hear people talk about why we still need pen and paper, books, and we still need cursive handwriting, my personal opinion is a lot of these same arguments. It's like, when's the last time you used a stone tablet? You know, and who knows how to chisel on a stone tablet? I don't know how to do that. When I hear people talk about cursive writing, a lot of times it sounds to me like the same arguments people said, like, look, you still got to know how to ride a horse, because what if your car breaks down? I don't know how to ride a horse. I've never ridden a horse in my life. And I'm getting along just fine. And I know that would bother a lot of teachers, but that's my 2 cents. I'm not saying that is... Yeah, I am. I'm saying I feel like that's the truth. Look, your great-grandchildren are not going to have textbooks, and they won't know how to write cursive. They just won't. You know, and that is, to me, one example of cultural lag. And let me tell you, if you like pen and paper and books, more power to you. Some people still like using records, right? Some people do. They prefer the sound of it. You know, me personally, though, I'm fine with MP3. I don't care. Just, you know, give me some digital download of music and let me move on with my life. Because I'm not keeping up with a record player. But what are some things you think that we're going to phase out? I think digital media is coming. I think we're going to phase out physical media. I think there'll be a day where there'll be no such things as... You're going to tell your kids are going to go, what's a Blu-ray? What's a VCR? Or DVD player, right? I mean, a DVD player, sorry. I was reading Rachel's comment that says she likes her planner. Look, it's going to happen, right? Video games. You know, they're already working on making video game systems where you don't stick a disc into it. You just download it, right? Most of my games are downloaded now. So, you know, it is what it is. Magazines, yeah, people, you know, most people, if they get magazines, it's digital. So, you know, I think that's the new way. That's the new thing that's coming. I'm hoping movie theaters don't get phased out. That's something that really scares me about this pandemic. Anyways. Now, social conformity. This is where it's going to get a little controversial. So, hunker down, right? Sometimes conformity can be a good thing. Right now, we all need to be social distancing. We all need to be wearing masks. We all need to be washing our hands and following basic safety measures, right? Everybody needs to be doing it, and if you're not doing it... using fountain pens? Yeah, absolutely. Fountain pens are going to go the way of the dodo. They just are. Look, in my high school teaching career, I remember I used to have Rachel buy me packs and packs and packs of red pens. She don't buy them anymore. Because now I grade everything in Google Classroom. I don't have to grade pen and paper anymore. But yeah, you know, the social conformity of it. Look, if you're one of the people that's not wearing masks and you're out living that YOLO life and just, you know, having these Corona parties and stuff like that, you're dragging this out. It's going to last forever if we can't get these people to stop. And I'm starting to worry that we're never going to get them to stop. But it's just dragging it out to the end of time. So good conformity, right? One of the things that I think gave Asia a huge advantage, we saw countries like South Korea that really kicked Corona in the butt, and that is partially because of their social conformity, right? Like everybody in Asia was already kind of wearing masks, and when the government said, "Hey, I need y'all to start wearing masks," man, they all wore masks. There was no argument about it. You know, you didn't see people out there protesting in the streets saying, "Oh, it's my right to not wear a mask," right? And it really helped them kick COVID-19 in the butt. So what is another example of good conformity to y'all? Where like people are conforming and it's a good thing. Let me know your thoughts below. What do you think? Now sometimes there is bad conformity, right? Ignoring safety restrictions, right? We're seeing all these people, it's like, well look, they're all going to the beach, I'm going to go to the beach, right? I've had to argue with some of my friends, like, what are you doing down there at the beach with these spring breakers? Like, why? Living that YOLO life. Like, what is going on, you know? Have people having corona parties. Let me tell you, there's even now people getting angry at other people for wearing a mask, right? It's not even bad enough they're out there trying to get themselves killed. They're mad at you because you don't want to get yourself killed. You know, so it's absolutely bonkers. That to me is bad conformity when you're trying to follow those, you know, the people that are doing that, right? The people that want us to just go back to life as normal and just forget the lockdown, no safety, just carry on business as usual. And probably one of the worst examples I found here recently is the hydroxychloroquine, right? You know, there's a lot of people. I got into it really bad with somebody the other day. They're pushing this garbage. You know, well, Trump's taking it, so I'm going to take it, right? You know, it was like, what? Why? You know, like, and this is an elderly lady. She's not in the best health. You know, she's like, oh, I'm going to take it, and it's like, oh, please don't. You know, like, I don't want to see you die just because you're, you know, even if you have been tricked into dying, killing yourself, I don't want to see that, right? You know, and of course we find out as soon as Trump started pushing that drug, and now he's saying he takes it, we saw people, sales of the drug were skyrocketing, right? All these people taking hydroxychloroquine, massive amounts of people are taking it, right? And now the study came out today, and if you look at the date right here, the 22nd, okay, 10 a.m., this just came out, it's found conclusively that it increases your risk of death if you're taking it for the uses for COVID-19. So, you know, I mean, that's an example of where bad social conformity, right? People want to follow the group think, you know, that's what all my buddies are saying, so I'm going to push this dangerous drug, right? I'll tell you another one that I think is coming down the pipeline that I'm really worried about that's coming. Is even if we get the vaccine, there's going to be a lot of people fighting us to not take the vaccine. And probably the most popular theory I've heard out there is that Bill Gates created the coronavirus so that he could trick people into taking the vaccine because it's secretly got a microchip in it so he can track you. Right? That's the most popular one I've seen going around. This is all one big hoax so that Bill Gates can track you with a microchip. It's like, oh my God. But how do you argue with somebody that thinks that, right? And so, you know, the age of misinformation is really, one hand washes the other, right? Like you get enough people believing gibberish or somebody really important spewing gibberish, and now you got everybody believing it's gibberish, right? Another one too is, you know, when Trump came out and said, you know, you can, that they were looking into injecting disinfectant to fight COVID-19. And next thing you know, Poison Control's getting all these phone calls of like, you know, hey, can I inject bleach and cure myself or prevent coronavirus? It's like, oh my goodness, you know, and it's just, it's absolutely bonkers, right? So this is the question I have is, why do you think so many people are willing to go along with bad information, right? Why do you think that is? And let me tell you my kind of personal hunch, and your guess is as good as mine is, because we want to. We want to. You know, I was sitting there thinking the other day, it's like, man, I want this to be over. I'm a sociable dude, right? Anybody that follows me on social media, you'll see very quickly, man, me and Rachel, we love taking the kids places. If we were not in Corona land, man, I would be all up on going to the beach, going to the park. We missed a holy festival. I mean, we do a lot of stuff, right? We love doing stuff, particularly with the kids, right? Movies. I love going to movies, right? I love going to movies, and I'm giving up all of that. The gym. You know, I worked really hard. I lost about 100 pounds. If you knew me from 9th grade to now, you'll know I lost a ton of weight. And part of that's because I developed a routine where every day I go to the gym for about an hour or two. And I'm missing it. And I tell you, I went out and jogged this morning. I jogged a mile, and I thought I was going to die of sweat. It's so weird because it's now become just a pure thing of endurance, right? Can I withstand the heat? But yeah, the psychology of it, right? That's a great point. The cult mentality. You know, there's a thing about it where it's like, I think we all want to believe that this is a hoax. You know, it's one of those, like, I would love somebody to come along and offer me an easy solution. And I think that's kind of the core to it, right? Is, you know, there's the bandwagoning effect and all that stuff of everybody wants this to be over. I don't want to wear a mask. They're uncomfortable. I don't want to. You know, I think we all want it to be over. Who doesn't? You know, Quinn was saying in the chat that she was supposed to go to Korea. How great would it be if tomorrow it was revealed that coronavirus was one big hoax and we could all go back to life as usual and you got to go on that vacation? How great would that be? Right? And you earned it. Let me tell you, Quinn, you earned it. If there's ever a student I met that earned to be able to go on a fun trip, you're up there, right? Like, you earned that privilege. And I hate that it got taken from you. How great would it be if it turned out that I was wrong and it's all one big hoax? I wish it was. You know, but I'm not going to put myself or my family or people I care about in danger because I want it to not be true. You know, and I think that's kind of at its core is the psychology of, look, we're all getting sick of it. And let me tell you, even I struggle with it. Every day that goes by, there's a part of me that a little bit more that wants to go, I'll probably survive it. You know, I'll probably live through it. Let me just go ahead and get it and move on. You know, and I got to keep telling myself, I don't know that. And my family depends on me. You know, I need to make sure I'm not one of that 2% of people my age that die from it. So, but hey, listen, what do y'all think? Why do you think people are willing to go along with bad information? As we speak, I had 2 notifications of somebody I debate online that's arguing for hydroxychloroquine. It's like, oh man. So let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Listen, thank y'all for your dedication to your education. I appreciate y'all showing up. You know, I had to get a lot of this off my chest, right? I just had to, right? It's, you know, something I feel passionate about. So, but yeah, let me know what y'all think below in the comments section. And yeah, that'll do it for me today on this episode of Wall Dropping Knowledge. I guess it's not history because we didn't deal with history. So Wall Dropping Knowledge, I guess is what we'll call it. So thank y'all so much for showing up. Appreciate y'all's dedication to your education. And until Monday, goodbye.